the total number of demat accounts, which is mandatory if you have to operate in the market, between NSDL and CDS on a gross basis is less than 2 crores. If you dedupe, as in somebody has the same person has an account in both places or multiple accounts, if you dedupe, that number sharply falls to about 1 crore 50 to 1 crore 60. So which means the actual penetration is to about 1 to 1.5% of the population. But the noise level that 1 to 1.5% can produce is phenomenal. All of you look, most of you look my age or older. When I worked at the Hong Kong Bank, from where I sat, which was at the end of, which is at Fountain, depending on the noise level that came from the trading ring in the late 80s or early 90s, you knew whether the market had gone up or down. And it was confirmed when you went for lunch. If you got a table easy, then everybody's in the market at Apeksha. So we have completely disconnect between reality and perception here. The perception we would give to anybody is we are a 24/7 on the ball, a nation that understands investments, capital markets, very involved in all of this, but the reality is not more than 1.5% of the population are actually in there. And that's the disconnect. So to bridge this disconnect and say how do we get, I'm not saying bring perception down to reality, but can we improve reality to catch up with perception? Right? So I want to speak from a SEBI standpoint as to what I think we should do. There are various people who have to do things, but as a regulator, how do we see this and what do you think we should do? And to preface that, I want to spend a few minutes on why SEBI exists and what is it trying to achieve. Again, if you ask a consultant, he will say that is about the vision and mission of SEBI. So I'm not using such big words. I'm only going to say that what is the intended future state that SEBI would like to see? And what is the purpose of its existence? Or what does it try to do to achieve that intended future state? If you look at the preamble of SEBI, since it's created as an act of parliament, it has these big things. If you look at the preamble of SEBI, it talks about its role being threefold. First is investor protection. The second is market regulation. And the third is market development. That is what is set out in the preamble of SEBI, and that's what will drive SEBI in everything that we do. If I have to translate that into vision and mission of SEBI, to me it translates into 5 distinct states. One, SEBI has to be the ultimate protector of investors' rights. 2, SEBI has to enjoy the trust of all stakeholders. 3, SEBI has to create a highly efficient and vibrant capital market. 4, SEBI has to create a market that works in the interest of Indian economy. And 5, SEBI has to guard the economy with resilience from the shocks of capital market. To me, this is why SEBI exists. This is what it is trying to do. Right. So when we talk about widening invest equity cult in this country, from a regulator standpoint, that has to fit into one of these 5. Otherwise, it would be out of sync. So, for example, if I take the point about has to be the protector of investors' rights, how does that manifest? To me, that manifests in achieving a level of disclosure, achieving a level of transparency. There's a big difference between regulatory environment and controlled environment. And I think we as a country have to spend a lot more time, energy and effort in educating people that we have moved from a controlled to regulatory environment. Because if you look at the Indian psyche, if you take an Ajay Vijay off the streets, we always think profits are mine, losses are my bab. It is not in our psyche to think that I am responsible for my actions. We believe that if it's good, it's mine. If it's bad, then I can shout, scream, rave, rant, and somebody else has to compensate me. That's because a large part of the nation has not kept in sync with the fact that one part of the nation has moved from a controlled, overprotected, almost socialist setup to a more regulated, market-oriented setup. And that mindset change has to happen. The Indian consumer, or most Indians, have a natural fear of finance. If you talk to people, there is an intrinsic fear of finance, which is what chartered accountants exploit in a very big way, but we will keep that for another discussion. But there is a huge fear of finance. And within that, investment is the highest of them all. People are nervous about this. As a country, if you ask people, what do you want from your investment? I want my investment back. When I was in IIM Ahmedabad, in our second year, we had to fill a form, which was to be collated for placement purposes. And you had to say a little bit about yourself and say a little bit about what kind of a job you want, what industry, what kind of activity. And one of the rows there said salary expected. A number of us, eager beaver, would write 2,000 rupees a month, 3,000 rupees a month. A good friend of mine, Paritosh, wrote again salary expected. He said yes. So, if you ask a number of Indians, I'm not talking about the top 1%, if you ask a number of Indians, what do you want from your investment? He'll say return investment. The next step is return on investment. So there is a huge fear of losing capital, of losing principal. That's the Indian psyche. If you look at the actual penetration of capital markets, yes, we have 125, 130 year history. But the first 100 years was a limited club, exclusive club. Us it may not like this, but it was an exclusive club. The first breakaway from it was the Ferrer dilution. It brought in a bunch of informed investors. Please read, there is a pun on it. When I say informed investors, I'm not talking about knowledgeable investors, but people who had information on this. So it brought a bunch of people, and a lot of them made money. Because, you know, the environment in which the Ferrer dilution. Then through the 80s, the first round of liberalization happened under Rajiv Gandhi. You had companies coming in, and that created what was called the IPO boom. Right? So everybody except the investor made money. The data entry operator made money, the registrar made money, the printer made money, the samosa guy outside Bombay Stock Exchange made money, the guy who kept a stand to sell application forms made money, except the investor. Because it was sold as a lottery ticket, buy and sell on listing. And it was fashionable to say, I bought this issue which was 100 times oversubscribed. The flip side of that was the vanishing companies. And we still haven't gotten out of it. The good thing SEBI has done is at least it has ring-fenced the problem. So there are no new vanishing companies coming into the list, but there are enough out there which still owe a lot of money to people.